Thanks for coming out. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. I'm your host this afternoon for a lecture on false impressions we've been educated in about healthcare and about medicine and about what works and what doesn't work. I'm a naturopathic physician. The initials after my name are ND. In order to become a naturopathic physician in North America, the US, or Canada, you need to do 4 years pre-med, 4 years naturopathic medical school, 900 hours of clinical supervision. You have to pass national boards, pass state boards, and do 25 hours more or less of continuing education credit every year. It's a full-blown medical degree. What we are trained in, what members of my profession are trained in, are science-based, clinically verified alternatives to drugs and surgery. One of the biggest misconceptions which exists in the world today is that those naturopaths, what they do isn't proven. It's not scientific, and that's nonsense. My profession exists to marry the scientific method with non-drug therapeutics. The majority of what we preach is in fact science-based and clinically proven. And as it turns out, our colleagues, the MDs, only about 30 to 40%, depending on how you crunch the numbers of what they do, is in fact clinically verified and proven. So, if you look up the root word of doctor in Latin, it translates to docere. And docere means teacher, means educator. And I take my oath as a naturopathic physician in 1992 very seriously. And I give hundreds of free lectures all around the world, quite frankly, helping to educate people about medicine and healthcare and how the body works. The human brain can only attend to so much at one time. And when we're focused on something, it's real easy to miss big stuff that's right in front of our face. Or like a medical system which has completely failed. Like a medical system which is the leading cause of death. Like a medical system which has completely been dominated and controlled, not by what's right and effective, but by money and profit. It is my goal today to give everybody in this audience an aha experience, to peel back the curtain on the way that medicine works, and to help to educate you about all of this, and to help you have a better chance at seeing the trillion-pound gorilla in the middle of North America. Perspective is important, but by way of perspective, for goodness sake, you don't know what you don't know. I know I can't speak French. I know that. I know I can't fly an airplane. I know that. But there is some stuff, like the solar system stuff, that is so far outside of my reference, I didn't know that. And when you have access to the information that you didn't know, that's when you have an aha experience. Well, it's my intention right now, this afternoon, to give everybody in this audience an aha experience relative to health and relative to medicine. Every culture has embedded into it a myth. It comes with the territory. A cultural myth is something that everybody in society believes just because everybody believes it. It's not supported by fact, it's reality by consensus. Everybody believes it just because, just because. It comes along with the territory. The most famous example is, holy smokes, the earth is flat, right? Before Christopher Columbus, everybody believed, the earth is flat, and if you sail your ship too far, you're going over the edge, baby. And everybody was wrong. After that, we justified slavery for over 600 years by saying, those blacks, not really people. They're just animals. And of course, everybody was wrong. After that, you can't have a healthy economy unless you put your kids to work. Childhood labor is a valid economic necessity. And everybody was wrong. After that, oh, those women, they're not smart enough to vote. And everybody was wrong. See, the thing about a cultural myth is when you're embedded in it, you don't know that you're embedded in it. You don't know what you don't know. You just go along for the ride just because. Well, as it turns out, there are two cultural myths which are killing us, literally. And we have no idea that we're embedded in the myth. Myth number one, the MD is the undisputed king and owner and emperor of medicine, and everybody else is a back-of-the-bus alternative quack. It's nonsense. Medicine, nobody owns medical science. Medical science is this vast domain, and nobody knows everything. The naturopaths are trained in one aspect, the osteopaths, the chiropractors, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, homeopathy, and what the MDs do. MDs are not trained in medicine. Nobody is. MDs are trained in one very small piece of the pie of medicine. But the pharmaceutical companies have convinced you for the last 100 years that this is the only valid piece of the medical pie. Don't look here. Pay no attention to these guys because they're dangerous and they have substandard training. And quite frankly, it's a bald-faced lie. Medicine is like dogs, right? There's a lot of different types of dogs and they're all good for different things. There's bloodhounds. Bloodhounds are really good for finding lost children in the wilderness. There's Labrador retrievers. Great for duck hunting, great for pheasant hunting. There's Chihuahuas. I have no idea what they're good for. But look, the point is, you're not going to take a Chihuahua duck hunting. I can guarantee if you take a Chihuahua duck hunting, you're going to come back empty-handed. I can guarantee that. It's the wrong dog for the hunt. Well, as it turns out, medicine is no different. The different types of medicine are good for different things. But in Canada, in North America, we use the MDs for everything. And this is the biggest blunder, the biggest mistake that we make. Now, remember, nobody owns medicine. I am trained and licensed in naturopathic medicine. Allopathic medicine is what MDs are trained in. They're not trained in medicine. Nobody is. Now, you trust that your MD knows what's best for you. Bless their hearts. But they can't. That's impossible. They can only know what they've been trained in. And as it turns out, what they've been trained in is just one small piece of the pie. And let's take a bite out of this piece and see what it's all about. Allopathic medicine is informed by a philosophy of healing which is called reductionism. Naturopathic medicine and virtually every other type of medical discipline is informed by a holistic philosophy. Holism and reductionism are 180 degrees opposite, like north and south, up and down, positive and negative, east and west. As it turns out, reductionism is really outdated and archaic and old-fashioned because reductionists argue that the human body is a machine made of parts. When you're sick, your body must be taken apart with a different treatment given to each piece. This is why when you visit the MD, you're lucky if you spend 2 minutes with the doctor. The rest of the time is spent with all of this technological discovery, urinalysis, CT, blood work, X-ray, MRI, right? All of this diagnostic stuff. Why? Because reductionists are trained to break the body down into each piece. And then when you find a problem, you deliver a medicine, not which is curative, but which manages that piece. So, you visit the MD, and you get one medicine for your blood pressure, one medicine for your heartburn, one medicine for your arthritis, one medicine for your migraines, one medicine for your diabetes, one medicine for your insomnia, one medicine for your depression, and one medicine to take care of the side effects of all those medicines. Right? This is what we're used to. But this type of treatment is the norm because this is what reductionism does. This is how reductionists do. This is what this dog does. Reductionism argues that when you're sick, you're screwed. Your body does not have the ability to fix itself. And your only option is to march in with man-made synthetic drugs which overpower and control the inherent metabolism of your body. Game, set, match. Now this, by the way, is not an MD bashing session, although it can certainly sound like that. And quite frankly, you know, the MDs drew first blood. The MDs for 100 years have been trying to put me and my colleagues in jail. They've been successful at it. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the history of medicine in North America in a minute. But, you know, MD-directed reductionistic allopathic medicine is one piece of medicine, and it's good for certain things. The stuff that MDs are good at is trauma care, surgery when it's necessary, and a handful of infectious diseases. This is their wheelhouse. For goodness sake, if you were wounded in the Vietnamese War, you had a 17% chance of surviving. If you're wounded on the battlefield now, 85% of our soldiers will come home. That's because MDs are really good at that. They're also really, really good at surgery when it's necessary, and the stuff that they can do in the surgical theater now is just this side of miraculous. So whether you need surgery or not, guess what the surgeon's going to tell you? Well, you need surgery, because that's all that they know. When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. They don't know what we know. And this is a problem. I bet you didn't know this. The philosophy of MDs, their philosophy is not overly concerned with what causes the disease. They're trained in how to deliver drugs to manage the disease. Because their argument is the body doesn't know how to fix itself. If it knew how to fix itself, it never would have gotten sick in the first place. And it's too complicated and too sophisticated, and it's all this one big genetic mess. MDs, bless their hearts, do not practice health care. They practice disease management. Disease management is not health care. Is asthma ever cured? No. Is depression ever cured? No. Is diabetes ever cured? Heart disease, ADD, arthritis? No. These things are managed with drugs. The only thing these guys and girls can cure is, you know, broken bone, bleeding artery, bullet in the arm. They're good at that. But we have gotten so used to this one type of treatment because MD-directed medicine has, in fact, monopolized the medical theater for 100 years. We just haven't thought it through. MDs don't know how to cure heartburn. Now, what do? They manage it with the little purple pill, but they can't cure it. And to the profession that does not even know how to cure heartburn, we have given $600 billion to come up with a cure for cancer. $600 billion. Gee, I wonder why we haven't cured cancer. Because we took the wrong dog to the hunt. That's why. MDs, by virtue of their philosophical understanding of health, are incapable of curing cancer. But nobody sees this, and nobody talks about it out loud, except Dr. Glidden and Dr. Wallach. History marches on, and because we're busy with our lives, we're busy with our mortgages, we're busy with our jobs, we're busy raising our kids, we're busy trying to have a life, we don't know anything about medical history and medical evolution, and they certainly don't teach this in school. In the 1800s and the early 1900s, there was a level playing field of medical professions in North America. Nobody had the upper hand. You had the chiropractors, the osteopaths, the homeopaths, the Ayurvedic practitioners, the herbalists, and the MDs. And nobody had the upper hand. But in 1920, the Carnegie Corporation gave a guy named Abraham Flexner money to go all around North America and do an inventory of the medical schools that practiced MD medicine and that prescribed drugs. Because the Carnegie Corporation owned drug companies. So Flexner did this, and he came back with his list, which is infamously historically referred to as the Flexner Report. And the MDs and the pharmaceutical companies gave millions of dollars of free money to the medical schools and the hospitals that prescribed drugs. And they also passed laws, glad-handing legislators, to practice laws which made it illegal to practice medicine unless you were an MD. MDs are not in the driver's seat of medicine because their therapeutics are better. They're certainly not in the driver's seat because their therapeutics are more effective or safer. They're in the driver's seat of medicine because of financial and political coalitions which were built at the turn of the century that we've all forgotten about. The Flexner Report tipped the balance of power in favor of the drug companies. I mean, let's be honest. If you're opening a business and I'm opening a business and you get $1 million of free money and I don't, I guess who's going to have the better business? You are. And this is a problem. But you don't know me. I mean, who knows? Maybe I've got an axe to grind, right? I mean, maybe an MD stole my college girlfriend, right? Who knows? Well, like the fella said, you're welcome to your own opinion, just not your own set of facts. So by way of perspective, let's take a step back and look to see what type of results we've been delivered through 100 years of MD-directed medicine. The only medicine practiced in your hospital is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine your insurance pays for is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine you're educated about in school is MD-directed medicine, and the only medicine they make TV shows about is MD-directed medicine. You don't have a free medical market here in Canada. We don't have one in the United States either. The MDs have owned the show since the Flexner Report in the early 1900s, and let's just take a look at how that's going for us. As Dr. Phil would say, how's that working for you? While we've let the MDs drive the bus of medicine, obesity is skyrocketing. It is the single biggest health concern in North America. In adults, it's increased by 60% in the last 20 years. It's tripled in our childhood population, tripled. 33% of North American adults are overweight, by a lot. Obesity means, you're really, really, really overweight, not just 5 or 10 pounds. And 300,000 people a year march through death's door because of obesity-related illnesses. Thank you very much. By the way, this is a tragedy of biblical proportions because it is easier to help somebody gain and maintain a proper body weight than it is to fall off a potato truck. We know what causes obesity. We know how to fix it. And if you stick with me, I will teach you the secret to weight loss. Not even Oprah knows. And she needs to know it. While we've let the MDs drive the bus of medicine, Alzheimer's disease has risen from obscurity to the 6th leading cause of death. I am 54 years old. I didn't know anybody when I was a kid that had Alzheimer's. Now everybody does who's over 75. Well, not everybody, but most people. And autism, while we've let the MDs be in charge of everything, has risen from 1 out of 10,000 to 1 out of 80. 1 out of 80. 1 out of 80. We trust that our MD knows what's best for us. We trust they're in the driver's seat because they're better at it than everybody else, and that is a mistake. They're in the driver's seat because they legislated themselves there, and because they own the show, they can get away with horrible outcomes, and nobody questions it. And over the cliff we go, just like the lemmings following each other to their death. While we've let the MDs drive the bus of medicine, our life expectancy is flatlined. In North America, you're lucky if you make it to 78, whereas your genetic potential is 120. It even said that in the Old Testament. Man's years shall number 120. Well, guess what? That's correct. Any geneticist will tell you the same thing. Your body has the ability to make it to 120 years of age. But in North America, we're lucky if we dial it into 78. And quite frankly, the last 20 years ain't that pretty. We got no hair, we got 2 hearing aids, we're legally blind, we got 3 fused vertebrae, we've got no gallbladder, we've got 1 kidney, we've got 5 fake knees. We got no teeth. We need a prescription medicine to pee, a prescription medicine not to pee. Prescription medicine to wake up, prescription medicine to fall asleep, prescription medicine for the blood pressure, prescription medicine for everything of the golden years. In third world countries, like the Sardinians in the Mediterranean, the Vilcabambas in Peru, the Hunzas in Afghanistan, 1 out of 250 of these people live to be over 100 years of age. These pockets of humanity around the globe where they're over 100 and they're healthy. These guys have no health care, they have no insurance, they have no drug companies, they have no hospitals. They're lucky if they have a roof over their head and they're 105 years old chopping wood and carrying water. Now my colleague, Dr. Wallach, figured it out and wrote a book about it, Immortality. There are 5 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that all of those cultures had in common. They were doing things by accident which supported their body's ability to fix itself and maintain its health. By accident. Wallach figured it out, and we have it dialed in. Now listen, any overview of world history, like the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, or look at any South American dictatorship, one thing always remains the same. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so it is with medicine. The Journal of Clinical Oncology is the gold standard of cancer research in the world. There was a 14-year exhaustive study that was published in 2004. That's 9 years ago. 14 years of data. This is a big study. It's a big deal. And with statistical studies, the more data you have, the more accurate the results. They looked at people around the world, adults, who had developed cancer and were treated with chemo. And here were the results that they published after 14 years of crunching the numbers. 97% of the time, chemotherapy does not work. 97% of the time. Now, in a study that's this big, there's a 3% error ratio. Which means between 94 and 100% of the time, chemo doesn't work. So can somebody please tell me why Cancer Treatment Centers of America and chemotherapy treatment is popping up like mushrooms in a spring day? Well, there's only one reason: ka-ching. You may find it interesting to understand that if you go to a medical professional and they prescribe an antibiotic or a high blood pressure medicine, there's no kickback. But if they prescribe a chemotherapy drug, here's how it goes. The hospital buys the medicine for $3,000 from the drug company. They sell it to the patient for $12,000. Insurance pays $9,000. And the hospital and the oncologist split the difference. This is the only category of prescription medicine where their prescribing physician gets a piece of the action. It is the only reason why chemotherapy is still used. It doesn't work. 97% of the time, published in the Journal of Clinical Oncology, it doesn't get any better than that. But when you own the show, when you call the shots, you can do whatever you want because absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Heart disease. You would think that after 45 years of cholesterol-lowering statin drugs, low-fat diets, and exercise, heart disease should have changed, right? That's a reasonable thing to assume, but it hasn't. Just as many people get heart disease now as they did 100 years ago. The only thing that the MDs have improved upon is their treatment of a heart attack. So now if you have heart disease, they'll keep you alive for 5 heart attacks. Whereas in the past, you died after your first. Heart disease statistics have remained unchanged. Now, there is no relationship between high cholesterol and heart disease. It does not exist. It doesn't exist. If it did, you don't even need to know anything about biochemistry. For goodness sake, it's common sense. Statin drugs are the largest selling drugs in the world. $25 billion of statin drugs a year. It's enormous. So if there's a relationship between cholesterol and heart disease, then the heart stats should have changed. But they did not. Why? Because there is no relationship between cholesterol and heart disease, and that was proven at the University of Toronto. They studied 5,000 men for 12 years, could not find a link between high cholesterol and heart attack. There are over 30 other studies that support the same findings. Like this one, the Honolulu Heart Program, 8,000 patients published in 2001. Here was their results. The long-term persistence of low cholesterol increases the risk of death. You don't know what you don't know, and if you're not starting to get a little angry, you're just not paying attention. Facts are a stubborn thing. You're welcome to your own opinion, just not your own set of facts. It may interest you to know that 95% of the part of your brain affected by Alzheimer's is made from cholesterol. It's made from cholesterol. So, let's look at it from perspective. Here's a chart of Alzheimer's disease from 1800 to 2000. None, bam. Right around 1987, 1983, 1987, it spikes. You want to know why? Here's why. This is when statin drugs were introduced, 1987. Boom. And now they're the largest selling drug in the world. See a relationship there? When you drive cholesterol into the dirt with statin drugs, your brain dries up. Alzheimer's is a physician-created disease, period. 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 Cholesterol is not only very important for central nervous system function, it's also what all of your sex hormones are made from, whether you're a man or a woman. So, if you drive cholesterol into the ditch with statin drugs and fat-free diets, if you're a man, your testosterone dries up, and you know what happens then. And if you're a woman, you can't make progesterone, so you get hot flushes for 5 years instead of 5 weeks like your grandmother. You don't know what you don't know. And quite frankly, you have been played by a for-profit, out-of-control pharmaceutical juggernaut. And you're dying from it, literally. By the way, this was just published, front page of USA Today about 6 weeks ago. Statin drugs are linked to dementia and type 2 diabetes. I just saw 2 cardiologists on Dr. Oz 2 weeks ago telling people the same thing. We've been telling people this for 20 years. 20 years. It gets worse. Heart disease getting worse, Alzheimer's getting worse, autism getting worse, high blood pressure getting worse, arthritis getting worse, life expectancy flatlined. In the United States, and it can't be that much different in Canada, MD-directed medical treatments are the leading cause of death. They're the leading cause of death. You don't believe me? Go to my website. It's free, and download this. It's called Death by Medicine, drglidden.com. This is a 45-page, extremely well-documented, referenced research project. It draws datum from the Journal of the American Medical Association, the New England Journal of Medicine, the Lancet. Here's how the numbers crunch. Third leading cause of death, cancer, 550,000 people a year. Second leading cause of death, heart disease. Thank you very much, statin drugs. Leading cause of death, MD-directed treatment, 780,000 people a year die because of MD-directed treatments. Remember this, Vioxx. This one drug, which was the revolutionary new pain medication that was going to save suffering humanity, killed 500,000 people. This drug had absolutely no side effects except one, death. Even though it killed 500,000 people, nobody went to jail. 3,000 people are killed. In 9/11, we go to war. 500,000 are killed by Vioxx, and we don't bat an eyelash. MD-directed medical therapeutics are killing us, literally, and we give them a pass. Can you imagine what would happen if one naturopath, one homeopath, one Ayurved, one chiropractor gave one patient one herb and they died? It'd be a scandal. We'd be pilloried in the town square. Don't go to see those quacks. 780,000 people a year are killed by drugs and MD treatments. And in the United States, you know what they just did? Passed a law that made it mandatory for you to have medical insurance. You've had that weight on your back in Canada forever. They don't even give you the option. They just take the money right out of your paycheck for health care. Now, does your health care give you access to naturopathy, homeopathy, Ayurvedic? No. Because the industry has been monopolized. You know how overarching this phenomenon is? You know how deeply down this rabbit hole we are? This nonsense has been going on for so long, we expect to get sick. The only reason we do get sick is because we put our trust in the wrong system of medicine. Now listen, I graduated from a fully accredited naturopathic doctoral degree granting institution in the United States. I've been a licensed naturopathic physician for 20 years. And the state of Illinois, 6 weeks ago, fined me $5,000 because I used the word doctor on my website. In Illinois, the only people that can call themselves a doctor are MDs. Naturopathic medicine is only licensed and regulated in 16 states in the United States. We don't have a free medical market. It's been completely dominated by the MDs for 100 years. In a perfect world, we would only go to the MDs if we had a broken leg or a bullet in the arm or some type of trauma, heaven forbid. That's what they're good at. Pneumonia, that's what they're good at. But we go to them for everything. And we die. And then our relatives are so grief-stricken that they organize a 5K march and give the drug companies $100,000 to come up with a cure. It is a healthcare crisis of biblical proportions. The leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States is MD-directed medicine. Like Sherlock Holmes said, when you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. The simple fact of the matter that nobody sees is the glaringly obvious fact that MD-directed, allopathic, reductionistic medical treatments for chronic disease don't work. They don't work. They do not work. Just think for a minute how many people at work, how many people in your family, how many people in your church, how many people in your sports club, how many people in your golf club, how many people in your life are sick and suffering and taking a boatload of prescription medicine? Everybody. But it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's the medical industry's fault. That's why myself and Dr. Wallach give so many free lectures all the time. Free, free, free. Because you know what? There is a better way. Now we're going to talk about holism, which is the other side of the coin. The coin that you've been told is nonsense for 100 years. I'm going to dial it in for you right now. Holistic medicine argues that the human body is endowed with God-given intelligence. If you're an atheist, I cannot help you. Right? If you're an atheist, then just say natural intelligence. Okay? Your body has wisdom. Your body knows how to fix itself, and your body wants to fix itself. For goodness sake, your body was so smart, it grew itself, all by itself, from a single-celled organism into you. Now, do you think if it could do that, it knows how to fix itself? Well, yeah, I think that's a good guess. Well, guess what? My profession, members of my profession are trained in the science-based, clinically verified delivery of treatments that support your body's ability to fix itself. I have the easiest job in the world. I just give your body what it needs, get out of the way. And your body fixes it all by itself. For goodness sake, if you cut your hand, do you have to tell your immune system to secrete fibrinogen and to activate macrophage response time and generate more T helper cells? No, you don't even know what that is. All you do is keep it clean, and guess what? The body fixes it. This is our fundamental foundation philosophy. Your body knows how to fix itself, and your body wants to fix itself. Another fact of life is that there are some people in their line of work who are 1,000,000 times better at it than anybody else. Wayne Gretzky. Honestly, I don't know there's ever going to be a better hockey player than Gretzky. I mean, honestly, he was the king. For goodness sake, Da Vinci, Einstein. There are people in their field of endeavor who are just way better at what they do than anybody else. That's just life. Well, in the field of holistic medicine, the unrivaled superstar is the founder of the Youngevity company, my mentor, my colleague, and my friend, Dr. Joel Wallach. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Wallach now by way of education, because everything that I'm bringing to the table tonight, well, not everything, but most of the information that I bring to the table tonight comes from Dr. Wallach. And if I seem tall to you in any regard, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm standing on Dr. Wallach's shoulders. Dr. Wallach is the most experienced holistic physician in the world. Doc's been published 72 times. He's written 11 books. He has the longest running health talk radio show in North America. It's called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. He sued the Food and Drug Administration 8 times. I love that about Dr. Wallach. He sued him 8 times. Because of one of Dr. Wallach's lawsuits, we were able to secure something called a qualified health claim. Now, I want you to think about this. Dr. Wallach had to sue the Food and Drug Administration in the United States so I can say this without being thrown in jail. Selenium, which is a mineral like calcium, and it's cheaper than dirt, for goodness sake, because it's made from dirt. It's where we get it. Selenium supplementation reduces the occurrence of breast cancer by 82%. 82%. But it gets better, reduces prostate cancer by 69%, colon cancer by 64%, lung cancer by 39%. The Journal of the American Medical Association, December 1998. Are you kidding me? Breast cancer reduction by 82%? You know what this means? If every girl in Calgary took 1 selenium capsule every day, starting at birth, In one generation, we'd eliminate cancer in Calgary by 82%. Now, for goodness sake, why aren't the Susan G. Komen women marching for that? Because selenium is a naturally occurring substance, and you cannot patent a naturally occurring substance. There ain't no money in it. By the way, how many women got that phone call from their doctor? This was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Sally, it's your MD. You're not going to believe it. I just read in JAMA about selenium and breast cancer. I know there's breast cancer in your family. Oh my God, here's what I want you to do. Go to the health food store tonight. Throw a brick through the window. Get as much selenium as you can. Leave them a note. I'll pay for it. How many women got that phone call? All of my patients got the call. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a tragedy of biblical proportions, and this is the tip of the iceberg as to why we do what we do. We had to sue them to be able to say this. Creflo Dollar, who's a pastor in the South in the United States, he's one of these guys who got a mega church, right? 25,000 people every Sunday go to Creflo Dollar's church. Creflo Dollar's daughter was dying from asthma. She's 9 years old. Dying from asthma in the hospital that's unresponsive to conventional treatment. Creflo calls Wallach up, says, Doc, what do I do? My daughter's on her way out. Wallach says, have her stop eating these foods, have her start eating these foods, and give her these vitamins. He did. In 1 week, she's released from the hospital. In 3 months, her asthma is cured. It's gone. And that's Dr. Wallach driving the bus. Creflo was so beholden to Dr. Wallach that he commissioned this book for Dr. Wallach to write. It's called Black Gene Lies, Slave Quarter Cures, which completely busts the false belief that African Americans' crappier health is related to some mysterious black gene. It's nonsense. African Americans have statistically worse health because of the way that they eat. It's a cultural phenomenon related to food. It ain't genetic. By the way, when a medical professional tells you your condition is genetic, that's code for I have no idea what's causing it. I just don't want to look stupid. And here's what I want you to do. If they tell you it's genetic, I want you to say, really, Doc? Well, which gene is it? I want to know. We decoded the entire human genome 8 years ago. Which gene is it? It's not genetic. You've been played. Coretta Scott King was able to march in the Million Man March because Wallach fixed her arthritic knees with medical nutrition. Evander Holyfield had a heart attack early in his career. Wallach fixed his heart with medical nutrition. He came back and won 2 heavyweight championships. Nelson Mandela is as healthy as he is, as old as he is, because for the last 30 years, while he was in prison in South Africa, he was taking Wallach supplements. Andy Young from Georgia was sending them to him. And by the way, this medical nutrition also works for white people. So don't worry. But my point is, Dr. Wallach has been a champion for the African American community in his entire life. Do you know any other doctor that's done stuff like this outside of their race? Dr. Wallach's been a champion. For goodness sake, Theo Ratliff, the second oldest player in the NBA, just retired a year and a half ago from the LA Lakers. 5 years into Theo's career, he's got osteoporosis, he's got bone spurs, he's got weak ligaments and tendons, and he's got broken wrists because his bones are fragile. The best orthopedic surgeons in the United States said, Theo, you're done, baby. It's over. You cannot play in the NBA in your condition. Theo calls Wallach, says, Doc, what do I do? Wallach says, stop eating these foods, start eating these foods, take these supplements. He did. Completely rebuilt his body without surgery, and came back to the NBA, and for the following 3 years, after they told him he was done, he led the league in rebounds. And from the time that they told him his career was over until the time that he retired, he added $38 million more in NBA contracts to his bank account, and Dr. Wallach is the godfather of his children. And that is Dr. Wallach driving the bus. Now, here's where we get to it. I have been doing naturopathic treatments for over 24 years. And I got great results. You kind of have to be a knucklehead to mess it up with naturopathy, because all you're doing is giving the body its due and getting out of the way. I got great results before I met Doc, but since I've been using Dr. Wallach's formulations and his therapeutics and leaning on his research, the results that I've seen with my patients have eclipsed anything that I had previously been exposed to. Dr. Wallach's therapeutics work better than anything I've ever seen. Dr. Wallach wrote this book. It's called The Diseases of Exotic Animals. It's currently in the Smithsonian Institution in the U.S. It's a national treasure. It cost $25 million. It took 12 years to write. It was federally funded. Wallach did 26,000 autopsies and 10 million blood chemistries and histopathologies. That's a lot of work. By the way, none of which was theoretical. It was pragmatic, boots on the ground, old-fashioned, straight-laced research. The result of which it showed unequivocally that all chronic diseases are caused by nutrient deficiencies and fixed by medical nutrition. You do not have a bad gene. You do not have a voodoo curse. If you are suffering with a chronic disease, you're suffering with a chronic disease because your body has run out of the nutrients necessary to fix itself. However, in the U.S., what do? We ignore the body's nutritional needs and instead manage symptoms with drugs. I mean, scurvy is the most known nutrient deficiency disease. Remember back in the pirate days? Arr, we're pirates and we've got scurvy. Why did pirates get scurvy? Why did sailors get scurvy? Because they were out to sea for extended periods of time eating dried fish, and they got vitamin C deficiencies. Scurvy is caused by a vitamin C deficiency. You take vitamin C back into your body, the scurvy goes away. The British Navy knew this. They had barrels of limes on their sailing ships. They had no idea what vitamin C was, but they knew when their sailors ate limes every day, they didn't get scurvy, which is why the British sailors were called limeys. And it's also why the Brits ruled the seven seas for as long as they did, because none of their sailors had scurvy and all their opponents did. Chronic diseases are rooted in malnutrition, period. And that's why everybody gets sick. If $25 million of federally funded research, 26,000 autopsies, and 10 million blood chemistries and histopathologies proved that all chronic disease is rooted in improper nutrition, the medical profession that can fix it is the one that's trained in nutrition. That's not rocket science. Of all the physicians in the world, who has the most experience with medical nutrition? Wallach. He wrote the book on it. Which is why his company, Youngevity, is your last best hope for living a long, healthy, and wealthy life. Thank you so much for your time. I had an 18-year-old boy came to my lecture a couple months ago in Chicago. It was actually a year ago in Chicago. And he had type 1 diabetes. He needed to inject insulin every day, and thank God for insulin because he had type 1 diabetes. Without it, he'd be dead. But the problem with type 1 diabetics is even though they need insulin, because their bodies are nutritionally starved, every couple of months they need more and more and more and more insulin to do the same job, right? And it's insulin that makes you go blind and lose your fingers and toes. It's bad. So he came to the lecture, and poor kid, his parents were just going through a divorce. They didn't have the money to buy one healthy blood sugar pack. They couldn't afford it. So I gave him just one bottle of the Sweeties. One bottle of the Sweeties, it's $27. That's all he took. Just one bottle of our blood sugar support nutrient. One bottle. In 14 days, he was able to reduce his insulin consumption by 70%, 70% in 14 days. 14 days. Look, you don't know what you don't know, and you've been duped, quite frankly, by the pharmaceutical industry. Now look, drugs, I can prescribe drugs. Drugs are not the problem, right? Drugs are like guns. It's how the gun is used. It's not gun isn't the problem, it's how it's used. Well, it's the same with drugs. But medical doctors use drugs to fix nutrient deficiencies, and you can't do that. Which is why we get such poor outcomes all the time. So if you're sick and tired of it, if you're up against the wall and you just know there's got to be a better way, you've just found it. Eliminate the 10 bad foods, get on board with the appropriate healthy start pack, call me on my radio show and report how you're doing. Check out my website. I have an online health recovery program. It's $17 a month. If you like this lecture, you're going to love the stuff I have online. $17 a month. Cancel at any time. I have live webinars. I have archived webinars. I have all this information that's available just like the stuff I just showed you. You have 24/7 access to it. And also the radio show. It's a lot of fun. So listen to the radio show. Give me a call on the radio show. Tell me how you're doing. And we'll all lift each other up into the wonderful world of health. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. I had an 18-year-old boy came to my lecture a couple months ago in Chicago. It was actually a year ago in Chicago. And he had type 1 diabetes. He needed to inject insulin every day, and thank God for insulin because he had type 1 diabetes. Without it, he'd be dead. But the problem with type 1 diabetics is even though they need insulin, because their bodies are nutritionally starved, every couple of months they need more and more and more and more insulin to do the same job, right? And it's insulin that makes you go blind and lose your fingers and toes. It's bad. So he came to the lecture, and poor kid, his parents were just going through a divorce. They didn't have the money to buy one healthy blood sugar pack. They couldn't afford it. So I gave him just one bottle of the Sweeties. One bottle of the Sweeties, it's $27. That's all he took. Just one bottle of our blood sugar support nutrient. One bottle. In 14 days, he was able to reduce his insulin consumption by 70%, 70% in 14 days. 14 days. Look, you don't know what you don't know, and you've been duped, quite frankly, by the pharmaceutical industry. Now look, drugs, I can prescribe drugs. Drugs are not the problem, right? Drugs are like guns. It's how the gun is used. It's not gun isn't the problem, it's how it's used. Well, it's the same with drugs. But medical doctors use drugs to fix nutrient deficiencies, and you can't do that. Which is why we get such poor outcomes all the time. So if you're sick and tired of it, if you're up against the wall and you just know there's got to be a better way, you've just found it. Eliminate the 10 bad foods, get on board with the appropriate healthy start pack, call me on my radio show and report how you're doing. Check out my website. I have an online health recovery program. It's $17 a month. If you like this lecture, you're going to love the stuff I have online. $17 a month. Cancel at any time. I have live webinars. I have archived webinars. I have all this information that's available just like the stuff I just showed you. You have 24/7 access to it. And also the radio show. It's a lot of fun. So listen to the radio show. Give me a call on the radio show. Tell me how you're doing. And we'll all lift each other up into the wonderful world of health. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden.